Hello, Greek students, and welcome to Romans chapter 4 with Dr. Rob Plummer. Today, we're talking about vocabulary building with GNTVocab.com. In order to get started, simply go to GNTVocab.com. Once you get to GNTVocab.com, you'll need to sign in if you already have an account, or you'll need to sign up. The login page, if you already have an account, allows you to simply add your email address and password, or you can sign up down at the bottom of the page. We require an account so that you can maintain your progress across various platforms. GNTVocab.com works with any device that has a web browser, both PCs, Mac, tablets, and smartphones. So whatever platform you're using, you can maintain your progress. Let's go ahead and log in and get started with Romans chapter 4. Once you log in, it defaults to the learning page. This is where you'll spend most of your time. Let's take a look at our settings first. The first setting you'll be concerned with is the learning rate. The learning rate tells us how quickly you want to learn your words. It's really a slider that tells us how many times you need to answer a word correctly in order for it to be considered learned. By default, 6 correct answers in a row means that the word is learned. But that slider can go to as few as 2 or as many as 20. Now, if you're new to Greek New Testament vocabulary, you may want to keep your learning rate slider farther to the left. If you already have a Greek New Testament vocabulary, you may want to have that slider further to the right, which allows you to learn words more quickly using the app. We have a toggle for including or excluding proper names. Some folks don't think it's necessary to really learn a proper name, as these are just transliterated out of the Greek into the English, but we do have that option available for you if you want to learn the proper names. Some students find it helpful to have sound effects when they answer a correct answer. They'll get a positive ding or a negative buzz if they get one wrong. Now, this is something you'll have to turn your volume up on your system or on your phone in order to hear it, and some people would prefer not to have them at all, so we give you that option. Another option is the number of new words that you'll receive once you've completed learning all of the words in your current list. Now, this goes from as many as 10 down to as few as 1. So again, if you're a newer student and this is your first time learning Greek, maybe you want to have this new word slider down toward the left. But if you already have a working vocabulary, you may want to have that slider all the way to the right because that will allow you to learn words more quickly. Another feature of GNT Vocab is the gloss language. By far, we have more English speakers than anything else, so that's the default language. However, we do have glosses available in Spanish, German, Swedish, and 2 forms of Chinese. So if English is not your first language, you have these options available. Also, if English is not your first language and one of our languages is not the language you prefer, go ahead and contact us and we'll see what we can do to get that additional language added as a gloss language. So this handles the settings that we have here on the learning page. So let's go back to learning. Across the top of your page, you'll see a menu for filters, review list, about, and here's your contact page again. The about page simply tells us how this app came about and a little bit on how to use it. The review list right now has no words in it because we haven't started learning any words. But this will show you a list of all the words that are currently in your vocabulary. The page we're interested in today is filters. So One of the filters that we have here is to filter by chapter. We can either filter by book, which lists all the books of the New Testament, or by grammar. So if you're a student learning at a seminary, you can choose a grammar and then filter by each chapter of that grammar as you go along. But we are concerned with filtering by chapter. We've chosen the book of Romans here, and we're going to select chapter 4. Notice that chapter 4 has 124 words in it. And as you learn words, this zero will begin to grow, and eventually you'll have all those words learned. Now, keep in mind that the total number of words that are listed in here, the 124, does not include, or it does include, proper names. So if you have your proper names toggle turned off, you may not get to 124 words in this chapter because there are proper names, like Jesus Christ is used throughout the book of Romans. So we know that not all of those words will you learn if your toggle is turned off. Another thing is, let's say you complete chapter 4 and you want to add chapter 5. You won't have to learn 122 new words, because as you learn words from chapter 4, the words in chapter 4 that are also in chapter 5 are reflected in that overall total. And in fact, all the words you learn get learned across the entire Greek New Testament. So you'll never have to relearn words just because you're learning from a new grammar or from a new chapter or a new book of the Bible. So let's go back. We've limited our chapters to chapter 4 from the book of Romans. Now we're going to go back to our learning page because this is where we're going to start learning. So we tap the Start Learning button, and you'll see that it presents you a complete flashcard, if you will. It's got the Greek word at the top, and you can even tap that to hear an audio version of the Greek word. Not all of the Greek words have this audio feature, but the first 500 words or so have that audio feature. And we're working on getting more of those audio clips in there. But also, as you learn the language, you'll have to rely less on external helps, like hearing an audio file. You'll be able to pronounce those words by yourself. So we have the Greek word at the top. Notice that de here occurs in different forms. Sometimes it's got an apostrophe on the end, replacing that epsilon there. That's a normal way that we'll see it throughout the Greek New Testament. And this flashcard merely shows you that so that you'll be familiar with the multiple forms of that word. Down here in the main part of the card is the definition. Notice how de means and, but, now. So depending on the context, you'll translate it differently, but we know that and, but, now are all acceptable definitions for the word de. What you'll want to do, especially if you're a new student of the Greek New Testament, really spend some time memorizing this word. Look at how it looks. Say it over and over. De, de, de. This will become more important with more complex words, and then work through the definition, and, but, now, and then say the Greek word and the definition together. De, and, but, now. De, and, but, now. And then when you think you've got that word learned, go ahead and tap on the card to get a new word. So the new word we have here are the pronouns ego and hemes. Ego, hemes, which means I. Ego means I, and hemes means we. And there are different forms for this we will see as we go along. But ego hemes, I, we. Ego hemes, I, we. Now I'm just going to click through these cards till we get to the end of this list. And then notice how on the bottom we have the review stage And down here, we have a little progress bar, which tells us how far along we are in the review stage. So I'll just click through this review stage, and once we finish with that, we'll get into the quiz stage. So hold on. So notice how we've clicked through those cards, which includes the Greek word and the definition for our first 20 words. Now we've entered the quiz stage. Notice at the bottom of the page, it tells us we're in the quiz stage. And down here, we have this progress bar, which shows us that we're just starting out our quiz stage. So now we've memorized our first 20 words, I hope. And then we have autos. And we remember that autos means he, she, it, self, the same. Now, hopefully, if you've learned that word well, you won't have to do the hunt and peck method. You'll just be looking for this definition. But if not, you can look at all these possible definitions and choose the one that fits best. So here we have autos, which is he, she, itself, the same. We tap on that card, or if you have a touch screen like a phone or a tablet or even a touch screen laptop, you can tap that card and it moves on to the next word in your quiz. So gar means for because. So we're going to look for because in our cards. Here it is down here. De. Remember that's the one we started out with is and, but, now. So now we're going to simulate working through this first set of the quiz stage just to get to the first end of 20 words. Hold on. So now you'll look at our progress bar down here. It's all the way at the end. So this is our 20th word that we're quizzing on, su humes, which means you or y'all. So once we tap on that, we're continuing a quiz stage. And this is because look up here in our learned status. This word chi, it's got a little pie chart there, and that shows us the progress of how far we are in terms of learning this word. Now remember, in our settings, the the learning rate slider was defaulted to 6. And this little pie chart here, that's 1/6 of the way complete. So we've answered this word correctly one time in a row. And if we can answer it 6 times in a row, it will be considered learned. And if we have all 20 of our words learned, we get new words. So we're going to simulate working through all these words 6 times, and then we'll show you what happens when we answer all of our words correctly. So now that we've gone through all of our words 6 times, notice our progress bar down here. It's all the way to the right. So this is our last word of our 20 words that we've learned so far. And notice the learned status. It has one pie piece missing. So we've looked at this word 5 times, got it correct 5 times in a row. And if we get this one correct, that will mean that it is learned. And in fact, all of the words of this group of 20 words have been learned so far. So once we click the correct answer, it automatically feeds us new words. So here we have kurios, a lord master, ginomai, I am, become, happen, exist. And we have 5 new words based upon our settings. Once we've flipped through those 5 words, it begins to quiz us. Now, let's go back to our filters for a minute here. Notice how chapter 4 has 20 of 124 words, and chapter 5 has 18. Chapter 2 has 20. So we see how many of the words that we've learned from chapter 4 also apply to the rest of the chapters of the book of Romans. Now, let's go back up to the book filter and we'll notice that those same 20 words have applied to all of the books of the New Testament. You may also notice that the coloration of some of these headings here have started to change color. Instead of being this really deep dark red like we have in Acts, Matthew, and Luke, look at 2nd and 3rd John. They're starting to turn a lighter orange. And in fact, as you learn more words from a book or a chapter or a grammar, these headings will change colors from dark red to orange to yellow to green and ultimately to white. When you've learned all the words from a chapter or from a book, it turns white. And so, what our goal is to gradually turn all of these headings white. So, now let's go back to our chapter 4 and our review list now shows us all of the words that we have learned so far. It's got the 20 words that we've learned, plus the 5 new words that we're getting ready to learn. And if you're on a PC, you can hover over that word and get the definition for those words, just in case you were unaware of that. You may be able to tap on a tablet and see that definition to the right of the word. So this is all you need to do to begin learning the vocabulary from Romans chapter 4. Now, I also want to encourage you and point out to you that GNTVocab.com is a learning ministry supported by the Daily Dose of Greek. The folks who work on this project do it absolutely free of charge. We volunteer our time and our efforts, and the Daily Dose of Greek has agreed to pay for the hosting and for the costs associated with that. We do not make a penny. But even if you don't support the Daily Dose of Greek, we will continue to support the Greek learning community with GNTVocab.com, offering it free of charge to anyone so that they can learn the vocabulary of the Greek New Testament. So happy learning, everyone. We pray that your time learning Romans chapter 4 with Dr. Rob Plummer will be profitable for you. Have a great day.